G'day everyone and welcome to the Dribble Podcast, your home for basketball in WA, with an inside look at the Perth Wildcats, Perth Lynx and WA basketball throughout the 2021-22 seasons. My name is Craig O'Donoghue from the West Australian newspaper, and throughout the year I'll be joined by a host of guests to provide you with as much insight and entertainment as your basketball brain can handle. This is a very special episode of the Dribble Podcast as we celebrate one of the great NBL careers. This weekend is Jesse Wagstaff's 400th game, and I'm happy to say he will be joining us to talk about that amazing career. It was another big week for the WA teams. Right now, the top of the ladder is very red in both the NBL and WNBL. Perth Wildcats are 8-3 and on top of the NBL table, while the Perth Lynx are 7-2 and in the exact same position. The Wildcats started terribly, as they seem to do, but once again fought back, as they tend to do also, and continued their outstanding form. And then the Lynx staved off being without Sammy Whitcomb, Marina Mabry and Darcy Garvin to beat Melbourne Boomers in overtime, thanks to an Alex Sharp nailing a superb three-pointer in the dying stages of the fourth quarter. Yes, if you're a basketball fan in WA right now, you are certainly seeing some pretty special efforts with both the Wildcats and Lynx. And speaking of special, 400 games is damn special. And let's welcome the man of the moment and have a bit of a listen to some of the things he's done in his amazing career.
Into the corner, Wagstaff for three. Zunic kicks it out for Wagstaff. Oh my goodness. Once again, it's Sobey on Wagstaff, and Wagstaff feeling confident as ever. This is a massive night for Jesse Wagstaff.
Yes, that was a massive night for Jesse Wagstaff, and 400 games means it'll be a massive night for him this weekend as well. Welcome to the Dribble Podcast.
G'day, mate. Thanks for having me.
Now, you're not a man known for getting excited about really anything, and you've just done a press conference and done your best to play it all down as well, but 400 games in any kind of elite sport is massive. You must be really proud of yourself.
Yeah, look, I don't want to downplay it, and I am proud, of the achievement. I think it's, especially with the one club, I'm proud of that as well. Not only the games in the NBL, but to do them all with one club, I think special. So I don't want to downplay it too much, but, to be honest, I haven't given it too much thought, and it's, it is another game, and it's an important game. So, I don't want it to overshadow that and the importance of that. But, yeah, I haven't given it too much thought, to be honest. One
of the sad parts about it, I reckon, the whole setup with the pandemic and things, is the best part about these milestones is when you see the dad walking onto court with his kids or running through a banner in footy with his kids, and your family can't be there. And I was thinking of, on the first day of school, I took my daughter to high school for the first time. Your daughter, I'm pretty sure, started primary school this year, and you're missing all these things, and they're not going to be there on the day. Is that difficult?
Yeah, look, it is. I think when the original schedule came out, it was lined up quite well. Actually, I think our second game back home after our trip out here was going to be the 400, so it would have worked out well. But alas, the schedule changed and plans changed, which is, I guess the story of the last 2.5, 3 years, really. Things out of our control, which is fine. And you do miss, you talk about milestones and, starting school, and, you do miss them, of course you do, but I think, I guess as a professional athlete, and at least in my experience, at the end of the day, I think, on balance, you kind of end up ahead. I'm fortunate that it's technically not a 9 to 5, and most days, I do pick up my kid from school. So, there are some important milestones that you have to miss, like those, but I think, on the balance, I think I still come out ahead, maybe. Well, that's what I tell myself.
So you've never been one for drama. You once said to me that while a lot of athletes struggle with the travel side of things, you can't understand why people don't like having food and drink brought to their seat, which has a TV in the headset and moves so they can recline and have a sleep. You said it's the greatest system of all time. Where did your more casual approach and laid-back approach towards the peripheral issues come from?
I don't think I was that enthusiastic about travel, but no, look, at the end of the day, you sit on a plane and get fed and watch TV. I think and get freaking fly miles, so it's it's not the worst thing. So I don't think I was too enthusiastic. No, but I mean, it's part and parcel, and there's a lot of things in, I guess, our profession that you can't change, and that's one of them. So rather than complain. You might as well embrace it and look for the positives, I guess.
So how do you go when the win-loss sort of scenario, never get too high, never get too low? You obviously don't never get too high when you're winning, but when the consistent losses come in at any point of a season, might be 2 or 3 in a row, where people have to have the hard conversations, is that where you step up and show your real strength, the ability to talk about the big issues without going over the top with it?
No, look, I think, at least for me, it's not that I love winning so much, it's that I hate losing. So I think it's a fine distinction. The losses I think you take pretty hard, and you should. I mean, as you get older, maybe you learn, but losses should hurt. And so, as I said, it's not the joy of winning, it's just the absence of losing, I guess.
So there is a big difference between trying to win and trying not to lose, I reckon, in any sport. And it's a different mindset approach, and you can be attacking or you can be defensive. How do you approach a game? Do you go in with the I want to win or I want to not lose in terms of how you set up your mindset, your positioning, all that sort of stuff?
Well, I think if you're heading into a game trying not to lose, it's a surefire recipe to lose. And it's a trouble, I think teams have fallen into the past, even ourselves over the years. You perhaps during a game you get up and a big lead, and maybe you're up by 20, and you start going away from the things that got you up by 20. And as you said, you try not to lose rather than continue to try and win. It's a trap that I think everyone falls into, even myself, over the years. So it's about, again, I've been speaking about this a lot, I guess, but cliches, there's normally an element of truth in cliches, and it's, you've got to go out there to win and concentrate on the process. So
I mentioned at the top, not many people play 400 games. Players don't win 6 championships either. So you've had a remarkable career. When you think back, do you have a favourite memory? It might not be a favourite championship, but is there a favourite memory of those championships? Something that somebody did which automatically comes into your mind?
No, not a specific one. I do love, no matter what championship it is, I do love the feeling of, I guess, contentment and just achievement. Just after the game that comes with sitting around in the locker room and just sitting there with the people that you've shared the journey with, and just knowing that you've achieved something. I think that's a really special moment that after the game. It could be on court as well. Just sitting there taking a moment. Often it's just in the locker room, maybe having a beer and just relaxing and I guess taking a breath and just realising that it's a pretty good achievement. I think they're the special moments.
Is there a favourite celebration? I remember one of them when you came back from Melbourne and you hired out a hall or something like that in the middle of the night, and you're sitting on a hill because it was 40 degrees and the fans didn't work or something. You hear some strange stories about how people celebrate. Is there a celebration that stands out to you? I mean,
there have been some different ones, and they're all kind of unique. Obviously, the Melbourne one was the first one, I think the only one I believe that I've won on the road, which was unique kind of in and of itself. You obviously got the COVID one, which we were in a room getting told that we won, which was different again. Yeah, no, but they're the times you really enjoy and remember. It's just, everyone in the same spot, everyone enjoying it. No matter where you are, I think that's the important thing. No matter where you are, it's the people you're with and just that acknowledgement that you achieved something.
And what about your favourite haircut along the way? You've had some rippers. You've gone long, you've gone short, you've had headbands. Like, what's your favourite look now that you look back on it?
Oh, I like the long hair because it means I just haven't had a haircut for a while. Although it did get hot in summer. And I'm sure if you asked my wife, she would not say it was that one. I wasn't I perhaps didn't wash it as much as I should have, or had been advised that I should have. But I enjoyed the long hair. That was a good achievement as well, I think.
Now, one of the most intriguing parts about your career, I reckon, is we've never lived in a time where it's more about the individual. Like, there's social media, which you're obviously not on. There's individual awards, there's big money contracts, there's the opportunity to travel, all those sorts of things. You've played 400 games now for the one club and started in a quarter of them, really. So most of the blokes who play 400 have started consistently. And you've got the ability to do that, but have stayed at the club and filled a really important role for the team. I'd imagine others came knocking trying to get you. Why did you always stay a Wildcat?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the maximum length of a contract in the NBL is 3, and I haven't always signed a 3. I think most times I have actually. But every time the contract comes up and you're a free agent, there's some clubs that are interested. But I think for me, and I think it's important to realise that anyone that goes through these contract negotiations, that that one, life is bigger than basketball, and I think that's important for everyone to realise, the fans and the club, and basketball is a big part of our lives, but we're not just basketballers. We've got families and we've got other hopes and aspirations. It is our life, but it's also just a job. So I think it's important to realise that. And in saying that, a lot of the decisions are based off other things as well as basketball. And, I've always been happy with Perth and happy with the basketball side of things. And likewise on the other side, our family, my family's always been happy in Perth. It's a great city to live in. We've had 3 kids there. My wife likes it. It's a beautiful place to live. So I think that's important as well.
And your wife's obviously from America, so her family's over there as well, and your family's way over in Canberra. So it's not like you can return to either of your hometowns and play, can you?
Right, yeah, it's not as if I'm going back to Denver to play for the Nuggets or going back to Canberra to play for the now defunct Cannon. So, anywhere is as good as home, and we've been there for 13 years now in Perth and love it. So, you can't be happier than happy, can you?
So why basketball? What was it about basketball that drew you in, given you played so many other sports and weren't necessarily the traditional hardcore fan as a young kid?
Look, I think originally it was, I think at the age I started playing, kind of the 14, 15 and even younger, and even kids who are older, you play for fun. And that's what it should be about. When my kids get to that age, the eldest is 5 now, but when they get a bit older, I'll be encouraging them to play anything and everything. I think that's really important, not just from a skill development standpoint, but from a life standpoint. You want to surround themselves with different people. You want to surround themselves with challenges, and I think sport is a great vehicle for that. So I used to do everything, and basketball was fun at that stage, so I kept on doing it. And then you get to the age of, 17 or 18, and perhaps you do need to specialise a bit if you make it to the higher levels or the state teams. There's always clashes of Saturday morning practices or, Friday night games. You've got to essentially make a choice. So I made the choice of basketball and was lucky enough to go to college after that. And even after college, I still wasn't sure if I wanted to play professionally. But, I think I'm lucky I made that choice and gave it a whirl. And here we are, 13 years later.
You mentioned the college. Like when we went to America for those NBA preseason games, you ended up back at your college, got to go and meet some people there who you'd been coached by and played with and things like that. That was a really cool day. Like, what did college mean to you? Yeah, that was awesome. It was really special, given that I'd spent so much of my time and formative years, I guess, as a basketball player and person in Denver. I met my wife there, and her family's still there, and she's got a really big family with 3 sisters and, cousins and nephews and nieces and brother-in-laws. And so, they've got a pretty big base there, and we try to get back there as much as possible. Obviously, COVID has put a bit of a dampener on that in the last 2 years. And having kids, it's a long flight with kids, to be honest. But it was really special. It was great seeing people that, I went to college with or had something to do with my career. It was great seeing them. And I was really, really fortunate that we played Denver and got to visit, what a city that, is really important to me. It was an interesting year that year. Obviously, you went to Utah first and got flogged. Then you're really good against Denver. And then it went up and down in that 2018-19 season. There was a lot of talk about whether or not having 2 imports was the right thing. And midway through the year, the club had to make a decision. And around that time, all the talk was if they had to move someone on, it had to be someone who was prominent off the bench because of the NBL salary cap rules. They couldn't just dump the 11th player because you have to have a certain number of players being paid a certain amount of money, and if it was the lowest paid player, then they would have breached the cap on their bench. You were obviously one of the players who was being mentioned at the time, Tom Jervis, Greg Heyer, all the guys who had a real impact. Were you nervous at the time, given that you were too good to be not on the squad, but you were someone who would have had to be moved on if they needed to bring someone into the squad? It was a really interesting time back then, I reckon.
Yeah, funny you say that. Not at all. I think something, what we've done well over the years is, there's a lot of external noise going on. And there always will be in sports, and that's part of, I guess, the territory and the business. But I think we do a very good job of kind of shielding everyone from that. At a team level, and also it probably helps that I don't have social media. So I miss a lot of that just by sheer ignorance, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't read articles. I don't kind of scan the pages for Perth Wildcats articles or things like that. I kind of limit myself, and if you're not on it, it's kind of, you don't see it and you don't think about it and you don't hear about it. So ironically, no.
So ignorance is bliss, which is good this year as well, because you're flying this year. You're in amazing form, and have been playing more as a mobile centre a lot of the time, as an undersized sort of player compared to what you've done in other years. How do you prepare for that sort of a challenge, knowing you're going to come up against someone who could be significantly taller than you?
Oh, it's almost out of necessity, isn't it? Obviously, Hodgie missed the last game through suspension, and he was injured at the start of the year, and then different matchups just kind of present itself. So, it's almost, just out of necessity. But it's different. I think I've been in the league long enough that I can probably shift a bit to the 5. There's some tall timber in the NBL this year, so you got to battle. But it's fun out there, and it's a challenge, and it's fun.
Now, his form this year has seen him quite often awarded votes in our Dribble Podcast MVP award. And in the 101-79 win over South East Melbourne, I've gone for 1 vote to Michael Fraser II for not only having 14 points and 9 rebounds, playing well early when no one else was. 2 votes to Bryce Cotton for 21 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds and 2 steals. And it was 3 votes to Luke Travers for his 24 points, including 4 3-pointers, while also winning 7 rebounds. Now, Jesse, I was talking to people ahead of this interview, and one 4-letter word kept on coming up. So I'm interested, and to quote one famous redhead politician, please explain, about the word IKEA. What does IKEA mean to you?
I was really worried where you're going with that. I was trying to think of a 4-letter word that you're going to ask a question about. I was a bit worried. I guess it's a bit of a joke around, some of the old crew that know me. I used to love, I still do technically, putting furniture together. I think it's like a grown man's Lego. Some people hate it. I think it's quite it's quite enjoyable. It's immediate satisfaction. Some people hate it. I don't mind it.
So you got 4 university degrees: Metro State Uni in Denver, a civil engineering, technology and structures, whatever you call it. That's your degree there, with a grade point average of 4.0. At Curtin Uni, Master of Business Administration with distinction. At Monash Uni, Master of Traffic Engineering, and at Griffith University, a Master of Financial Planning. So you could do anything you want to. And you had an ABN registered called Jessembled. So clearly you did like putting things together.
I've got to clarify. I haven't finished the Griffith Master of Financial Planning. I guess my motivation is waning. It's I probably should have done a bit more of it this year, given that we're so much time on the road. But with 3 kids and a wife and pretty busy home life, it gets a bit chaotic. So I probably should finish it, or at least exit it with a grad cert or grad diploma. But at this stage, it's on the back burner. But it's enjoyable. I guess you got to do what's enjoyable, and I'm not sure if there's a job in it, but it's fun to do in the spare time. If anyone has needed any help in the past, teammates or teammates' partners, I've always been willing to lend a hand if they provide dinner or food or a drink, or it's always a good time.
And I'm sure there isn't a man alive who hasn't had an issue with putting together something for Christmas Day, whether it's a gift or something that needs to be organised for the day itself. Take us back. It was 43 degrees this year. I believe there was a fan that you were in charge of putting together for Christmas Day that didn't necessarily work.
Yeah, see, now I definitely know who stitched you up. Well, let's just say I may have put the actual fan and the rotor on backwards, so it still worked. But to get any cold air and air, you had to stand behind the fan. But I fixed it. It should be known that I actually fixed it, and it's all in working order right now.
Good fun day, Christmas Day, when it's 43 degrees and the fan doesn't work, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Now, the Wildcats announced their 40th anniversary team last week. It was a bloody good team. Ricky Grace, Bryce Cotton, Sean Redditch, Andrew Vlahov and James Crawford with the starters. Damien Martin, Kevin Lish, Scott Fisher, Nick Kay and Paul Rogers were on the bench. A lot of people thought you should have been in there. Do you consider yourself unlucky at all?
Not at all. I wouldn't have voted for me if that's any indication. Look at those names. I'm not sure who I'm kicking out. So there's some phenomenal names in that team. I think I remember when they signed my age. I think they released the 30-year anniversary team. That's sad that I was there for that too. But look, there's some phenomenal names and some people that have done some amazing things on the court representing Wildcats. So not at all. I'm definitely happy with the decisions that were made.
It's a pretty damn good team, that's for sure. If you just miss out, you're not only unlucky, but you certainly can't consider yourself to be stiff at different points when you can consider yourself to be stiff, but you shouldn't be disappointed when you see that sort of team. That's for sure. They had a tough job, the judges. Now, we have a segment here on the Dribble Podcast called This or That, where you have to pick one side of an argument, and we watched the Lynx on the weekend win thanks to Alex Sharp nailing a shot to send the game to overtime at the big moment with a couple of seconds left. You lived that moment last year yourself, where the ball was in your hands towards the end. What's more nerve-wracking? Is it when you don't have the ball and you've got to rely on someone else to complete the job for you and you've got no control over it, or when the coach turns to you and says, you have to have the ball, you have to be in control of it, and you have to win? Everyone's got different attitudes towards what they'd rather do or what's worse to go through. What do you reckon's more nervous, being the person with the ball or being the person watching?
I assume you're talking about the one I absolutely smoked against South East. Thanks for reminding me of that. I think if you're on the court, it's pretty similar. Although probably more nerve-wracking when you're the one doing it. But if you're on the bench, you're probably more nervous as well. I think it's because you're just watching it and you can't really control anything. I think that's more nerve-wracking. If you're on the court, you're kind of living in the moment, just playing and relying on instincts. But if you're off the court, you realise, I guess, the gravity of the situation. Yeah.
Well, you've had an extraordinary career so far. 400 games coming up this weekend, 6 championships already. Hopefully, number 7 is on the way, given the position that the team's in. It's not easy for the team being in Hobart, not easy for the team being away from family and friends. Hopefully, Mr. McGowan lets you come back here really, really soon, and I'm sure the fans are really looking forward to celebrating your 400th when you eventually get here. So thank you very much, Jesse. Congratulations, and thanks for joining us on the Dribble Podcast.
No, thanks for having me.
And now we'll head into the lab, but we're going to have to do it a little bit differently because I'd love to say we have a guest from the Lynx today, but unfortunately they have told us that the entire squad is unavailable. They were superb in their 76-71 win over Melbourne. They are the league's travelling Wilburys, and their performances are quite extraordinary when you consider that. As ex-coach Andy Stewart said to us on the Dribble Podcast earlier in the season, their schedule is insane, and being based in country Victoria makes it even harder for them at the moment. Ballarat is about 4 hours from Traralgon, where they beat Melbourne last weekend, and now they're off to Bendigo this week. That's another 90-minute drive. They had to drive for 2 hours to get to Dandenong when they faced Southside. They've had interstate trips to Sydney and Canberra, and it takes more than an hour to drive to Melbourne Airport from Ballarat. As I said, this weekend they are against Bendigo, and that game starts at 2 o'clock on Saturday. Fortunately for them, it is their last game in Victoria before they are allowed to return to WA. They will then face 1 week of quarantine under the new rules that the WA government released earlier this week. Where they will live has to be sorted out, given the quarantine rules still require their housemates to also quarantine. So I reckon there's going to be a fair few teammates living in the same house in Airbnbs, but they have to work all that out. And the fixture is also unknown, but they are crossing their fingers that the WA government will let them play at the Bendak Basketball Centre. We don't know about opponents and quarantine times, and we don't know about fans. What we do know is that the Dribble Podcast Award is going, and the MVP for the Lynx is up for grabs right now. 1 vote from the weekend went to Alex Sharp. 8 offensive rebounds among her 13 boards, and also 7 points, including the 3-pointer that was just magnificent as it tied the scores and sent the game to overtime. 2 votes went to Lauren Scherf, who had an enthralling contest with Penina Davidson, who was also really good for the Boomers. Scherf had 19 points and 18 rebounds in that battle, and those figures often say that you're the best. But the best went to Jackie Young with 3 votes with 26 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. And I'll tell you what, it's getting really tight at the top of that award. Marina Mabry has missed the last 2 games, and with Scherf polling in both, she's only 2 votes behind. Meanwhile, Jackie Young has joined Darcy Garvin in equal 3rd place after polling in 4 consecutive games. A reminder that this week the Australian Opals are playing at the World Cup qualifiers in Serbia. That starts on Thursday. The Opals are playing matches against Brazil, Serbia and Korea. They finish on Sunday. That Serbian game will be really interesting after the Novak Djokovic saga, how they're treated, what sort of crowd they get, how the opponents play. It's going to be a game that everyone will have their eyes on. They are essentially practice matches for the Opals, given they've already qualified for the World Cup. It's being played in Sydney later this year, and they are guaranteed a spot. So it's a chance for Sandy Brondello to have a look at different players following the Olympic disappointment in Tokyo. In other big news around basketball, the NBL has granted the right to appeal Perth Wildcats big man Matt Hodgson's one-game ban for striking DJ Vasiljevic. They had to get special legal approval to be able to do that as part of the appeals process. Hodgson was handed a 1-game suspension and a 2-game suspended sentence by single-member tribunal Ben Isle last week. That was in a hearing which lasted about 3 hours. You can do a lot in 3 hours. You can drive from Perth to Margaret River. You can fly from Perth to Adelaide. You can play a game of 2020 cricket. You can leave home, go to RAC Arena, watch the game and still get back home again. It takes so long, but somehow the NBL managed to hold a tribunal that lasted 3 hours and still come up with a result which people think is incorrect. Hodgson wasn't even required to speak during that hearing, but he was deemed to have been guilty of 2 striking offences worth a total of 4 games, and then that was reduced due to good behaviour and a whole lot of other factors which left him with 1 game out. It did appear that 1 was nowhere near enough and 3 was too many, so I'd imagine he'll be missing this weekend and end up with a 2-game suspension. But when you look at it, I've sat through a lot of tribunals. The AFL's case against Toby Green for bumping a field umpire last year lasted for more than 4 hours, but at least he spent a hell of a lot of time giving evidence and so did the umpire. Hodgson was pleading guilty, so the system needs to be a hell of a lot better. You can't spend 3 hours arguing whether or not that was 1 strike or 2. Well, it was clearly 2. The appeal will be done via written submissions, and according to the NBL, all prior evidence will be taken into account. It does make you realise why lawyers make so much money when things get drawn out like this. So that's it for the Dribble Podcast this week. Remember, keep logging on to thewest.com.au for all your basketball news. Pick up your copy of The West Australian as well. Thank you to Samantha Rogers, as always, for her production work. Thank you and congratulations to Jesse Wagstaff for his time in what is a massive week for his career. 400 games. Make sure you tune in to watch him in that performance. It is one that will be to savour. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Dribble Podcast.